to now, we've seen different issues, different malpractices in our electoral system. We've seen ballot box snatching. We've seen where the results are distorted at collation centers. But recently, it seems the issue of vote buying is taking the lead. What are the dangers of this? How would it affect the outcome of our elections and especially governance after elections? This will be our topic this morning as we look at 2019, the dangers of vote buying. IG.
Yeah. It's good to have you here. Good morning and welcome. We'll look at vote buying and its menace.
And joining us this morning is Ambassador Timothy Nwachupu, a public affairs commentator, and as well, he's from the civil society constituency. Good morning.
Good morning. It's nice being here.
All right. Welcome. And also joining us is Professor Obiajulo Obikeze, Professor of Political Science, President General of our Development Union. He will also be part of the discussion this morning.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Welcome.
It's good to have you here, sir.
So, Ron, now we want to look at the issue of vote buying. Let's understand what's the meaning first. What do we consider as vote buying?
Okay.
Prof.
Okay. Well, you cannot discuss vote buying without going back a bit to issue of political party manifestos, political party ideologies, and what have you. The political party is made up of people who understand themselves. The basic interest is to grab power and be in governance. That's the essence of political party. And then before a party comes into power, there is a need to convince the people of what that party would want to do for the people in terms of what they call manifesto. A party should have a manifesto based on which it will be able to tell the people, look at what we are going to do, look at what we are going to do, who does responsible if we don't do that. And then there's also what we know as ideology. However, worldwide, we now notice that ideology has become, almost every country of the world is now a mono kind of ideology. A situation where we no longer talk of capitalism, socialism, and what have you. We now have ideology that is based on issues of what government can provide for the people. So having said that, we notice that vote buying is a way of trying to influence people, pry on the conscience of the people that they should vote for you, or they should support you, give you mandate to be in power. And so, as you said, it's not something that just started by giving money. Today, it is a practical and physical giving of money to the voter to convince the person that he should vote for you. That's the layman's perspective.
It's a way of convincing the voter to vote for you. Did you hear what the prof say? So has vote buying taken the place of vigorous campaigns?
Nigerians are known for innovation. Innovation in the right or wrong direction. Vote buying is the latest innovation by Nigerian politicians to induce prospective voters into voting for their political parties. Prior to now, you notice that in the past elections, within this period, everywhere will be hot. You see parties, individuals campaigning heavily. But right now, it's like politicians, they'll be able to sit down and be like, we don't need to go to the field again to even campaign. Just offer them money. Let them sell their conscience. It's quite unfortunate that we've degenerated to this extent because the politicians who are the architects of these inventions over the years, nothing has been done to them. They've not been brought to book. And permit me to say it will still continue.
All right, the discussions will continue, but let's take this short video on vote buying. We'll come back. Yes, welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Good Morning Anambra, and this is our first discussion segment. This morning we are looking at 2019, the dangers of vote buying, and we have some vibrant men in the studio joining us in the discussion. Ambassador Timothy Nwachukwu, a public affairs commentator, and Professor Obiajulo Bikeze, a professor of political science at Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu University. We've looked at the trend. What's the definition of that trend? Then vote buying. We now want to ask, several analysts will argue that the reason why people came up with, or politicians came up with vote buying is because the INEC system has become more effective, that the results they collect at the centers are what is announced. And probably that's why people now said, let's buy these votes before the casting. Professor, do you hold the same view?
I don't think we can give INEC that percentage that will make one, be convinced that it's because of the efficiency and competence that the issue of vote buying is becoming a trend. This issue of vote buying, it didn't just start today, as you have already mentioned. Giving rights to people for vote buying. Giving salt, umbrella, whatever it had in the past, these were vote buying. But these days is now in the field, you vote, you show that you have voted for somebody, then you'll be given some money. That one is very physical and very practical. That's what we do these days. So that INEC has improved, we are yet to see that that's the reason for that. Otherwise, if INEC has improved, there will be no need for vote buying. And then the issue of fairness, equity, and transparency will still be there. And so you tell yourself that you have not done anything. But what I believe that has prompted this is the idea that the politicians are very desperate and they want to get it by any means. And so wherever they know that the other party doesn't have much advantage or has much advantage, they penetrate that place and then do it by all means. We are yet to see INEC have such a good scorecard that will make us believe.
Okay, but I know that recently the electoral law was amended. And one starts wondering, why was this not vote buying reflected in the amended law, at least to criminalize it? Because we know that vote buying is a criminal act. You buy, you sell. It's corruption.
Okay, we can see on the screen some people who are collecting money, maybe to vote in an election. But just like she asked, the issue of criminalizing the process.
Yeah, the question shouldn't be about criminalizing. It's about strengthening what happens to
the process,
the people,
democratic process.
The democratic process. If I should put it that way. Remember, vote buy is not just about inducing the electorate with money on the election day. The former president said that it was just recently after he left office, he went to, by the virtue of his position as an observer, he visited some certain countries. That was when he understood that even giving rice, branded rice, giving items, branded items to electorate prior to the election is vote buying, is against the electoral law. So we know all these things. So the issue of specifically mentioning that, stating that if you offer money, what happens to the laws in Nigeria? The problem with Nigeria is that we have good laws, but we don't implement it.
Okay, looking at that implementation, INEC is arguing they are the body that regulates election in Nigeria, but they don't have the right to investigate or prosecute. How do they now prosecute people who are found offending electoral laws?
Okay, I'm talking about that. Remember, just yesterday, the INEC collaborated with security agencies, and the INEC has, over the years, been collaborating with security agencies. So what is the work of security agencies on election day? Is it not to ensure that the process goes smoothly and to apprehend electoral offenders? So the point is forget about that is just a lame excuse. So the police are there. The question I keep asking myself, what happens to all the people, the electoral offenders over the years? Now, how many of them have been convicted? How many of them have been sent to prison? How many of them have been jailed? so that this will serve as a deterrent to the rest. How can you be talking about criminalizing vote buying and there is what is called trader money? The way you give money to people, you collect their PVCs, you collect whatever. And what do you call that? And it's coming from the highest authority in the land.
Are you now saying because they've not been able to punish offenders for other electoral malpractices? Is that why they did?
Yeah, what you have just said is that talking of criminalizing it, you already know, even within you, you know that it's a criminal offense. The buyer, both the buyer and the seller, they are committing evil to the society because these things will affect the governance of the state eventually, as we are going to see. Now, you notice a situation where we have law enforcement agents, the name of police or DSS or whatever name they are called, and they stay at the polling booths and polling stations, and they should watch and see people that are contravening the laws of the society, and yet they do nothing, meaning that they've been compromised in one way or the other, either through the politicians or whatever means. So what he's saying is that it's not the issue of making something a law. In Nigeria, there are so many such laws, but how far have we been able to implement such laws so that the society will be better?
Okay, some people will argue, I've been on election grounds where people will tell you, look, we didn't buy these votes. It wasn't actually buying. This is my friend, and I decided to give a gift to him. Looking at that
on the polling booths.
At the polling booth. Looking at that scenario now, how do we look at these issues? How do we address? We'll still look at who should be blamed anyway. Why has it seem to have come to stay? But looking at the law, did the law actually define what electoral buying is?
I think the issue should not be what electoral buying is. It should be what electoral offenses are.
Okay, what are they? Did the law define them?
Yeah, of course, there is provision for what electoral offenses are, not just national ballot box and the rest of them. All this constitutes electoral offenses. And talking about the blame game, I've said it over and over. For election to be rigged, you only need two class of persons. You need the INEC officials and you need the security agencies. What happens? Of course, I've observed election several times in the state and outside. You did not discover that why electoral malpractice are going on, the security agencies turn blind eye to it. Remember, the civil society organizations are always there to write reports of things that transpire on election day. As I keep saying, it's not about writing a report, it's not about presenting to Nigerians about what is wrong with Nigerians. It's about talking to the right people. Who are the people who are behind this vote buying? Who are the people who are behind these electoral offenses? What happens to them? Take note, if you're a poor person, if you are nobody and you indulge in electoral offenses, I tell you, the police will arrest you. They will use it as a scapegoat. But when you know somebody and knows somebody, and you are connected to somebody who is connected to somebody, you have a kind of backing, even security.
That simply means that the punishments for the offenses are kind of biased. Exactly. Okay, but let me come to you, Prof. Let me come to you. Looking at what happened at the scattered elections that we had in Osun, Ekiti, perhaps Anambra State, and then the primary elections, okay, how money is changed hands in the name of vote buying. That's the name that you gave it. So what do you expect from 2019 elections?
Well, that's why I said that we have not we cannot give INEC such pass mark. We don't expect anything different unless we have a change in attitude of Nigerians generally. The attitude of politicians, that the candidates of the political parties, the police and law enforcement agencies, the political parties themselves, almost all of us are involved. It takes two to tango, just like I said. So if that's what we saw in Ekiti and maybe Anambra and Osun, if there's anything to go by, then we're in trouble. That's just the issues. And we wouldn't expect less because everywhere we continue to innovate, increase and multiply in creativity on how to cheat the society and teach ourselves.
Criminality this time, not creativity. Okay.
All right, well, we'll come back. We'll look at the dangers, how to address this challenge. But for now, we want to go to the streets and hear what people have to say about vote buying.
Bad leadership. Because when you sell your conscience by collecting money and voting for a wrong person, the tendency is that at the end of the day, that wrong person you voted for will emerge the leader and the people will suffer.
Selling our vote is like selling our future. If you say you vote for the wrong person, then I don't think development will ever come to this country. You will be in a point in this country where nothing will be working.
The most effect of vote buying in our country is that it makes us not to vote the radical person, and it is affecting the country. If we can vote our choice, the person we need, whom we know that will bring development in our country without buying the vote, it will help us.
It's too dangerous to buy votes because it's just like somebody selling the sun. If you buy the vote, if you accept money, you sell your conscience, and whatever is given to you, that is what you take.
Yes, we are looking at the dangers of vote buying as we prepare for the 2019 elections. And remember, you can join the discussion by calling the phone lines on your screen. But remember that when you call, you lower the volume on your TV set so that we can hear you and we'll be having callbacks. So we'll run now. We still have Professor Obiajulo Obikeze and Ambassador Timothy Mwachukwu. We are looking at the dangers. Okay. Someone is joining us. Let's take this call. Hello. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Go on. Your name and where you're calling us from?
I'm calling from Anambra State.
Where in Anambra?
I'm calling from Atani.
Atani.
Abba.
Okay, Abba. Go on.
Hello?
Oh, go on. We can hear you.
Hello?
Hello.
I'm talking about the increases of the food.
Okay.
That's just the vote. Some people that call it increases there are two buying. People are buying the two. They can just look at for what they're doing. They know what they can arrest someone who has doing something for the team. So all the things are already become dead.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
There's no way for you to get somebody here and to not somebody here. There's no way to get somebody. But yet, those communities, they are too bright with you. They're taking bribes, they are too corrupted. So there's no way to make the election to be free. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Though you didn't tell us your name. Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, as we're looking at the dangers and perhaps the challenges inherent in the, vote buying, we'll call it. I was in a place where we were discussing recently, and somebody was complaining. Why is it that during this campaign period that money is not exchanging hands, unlike before?
Yes.
Okay, that's before, just few weeks to the election, there will be money everywhere. And some other person just rose up and say, you blame it on vote buying, that the politicians are stashing their money, waiting for the polls to come so that they will, start sharing money at the polling booths. And then I was asking, is this supposed to be an advantage or disadvantage? What is really going on? Are we going to continue like this?
Well, what is going on is a combination of so many factors. The issue of poverty of our pockets, particularly, and poverty of our mind, which is ignorance and maybe illiteracy. Well, in Anambra State, for example, maybe we don't have many illiterates, but we have people who when they can read and write, may not have that analytical mind to weigh issues and be able to have a decisive and good issues. So when somebody is poor, he can do anything, can reduce himself to any level. And then that becomes the issue of vote buying. And when somebody is not exposed enough, is not educated enough to understand that you are harming yourself indirectly, that also becomes another factor. Then there's the issue of a loss of confidence in the whole process. Confidence because people now feel that one, does the vote count? Two, what of governance? When they enter there, we won't even see them. They chase us out of the road. We can't enter their places and compounds. This is the only time I have to collect 1 or 2 naira, and that's the only thing I've gone from this this process. So these are some of the issues. So it's a kind of a vote of no confidence on the leaders and then even the people, because the people should know themselves that they're harming themselves indirectly. Because once you collect the votes, the impunity continues. And you cannot. It's just like military rule. They shoot themselves to power. And who are you to now go and say, you didn't do this for me, you should do this for me? So once you have bought...
Someone is joining us.
1 second, Prof. Yeah,
Hello. Hello. Your name and where you're calling us from?
It's obvious your line is not true. Please
It's not true. So
change your position and call us back, please.
So
Yes.
once you have been paid, what else are you expecting? Good water, roads, all those things you've collected your pay. And
Upfront.
Yes. So why should you? Who are you now to challenge the politician who has not cared to even talk about you in the House of Legislature, or executive who doesn't care to go and check if a road he has awarded is being executed or
So
what?
how do we find solutions to this? In Osun, INEC adopted a system where they said no use of phones inside the boxes where you cast your vote, so that there won't be snapping. And what will be the solution? Do you think that strategy is feasible and sustainable?
Solution to vote buying generally, we should start with reorientation. Because gradually our values are being eroded, and in near future, people will now, the upcoming generation will think.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Your name and where you're calling us from?
My name is George. I'm calling from Uko in Anambra.
Tochi from Upo. Okay, go ahead, Tochi.
Question. Okay. What I have to say about the vote of buying is costing many things.
Hey.
Echo.
Tochi, please, you call us back. It seems the network is very bad this morning. So
And another reason is because you didn't turn down the
volume on TV.
So you have this echo. You keep listening to yourself.
So I was talking about reorientation, because if the minds of our people are not reorientated in the near future, people will not believe that it is the norm, that it is the right thing. Now, apart from the measure being put in place by INEC, I think more decisive action. There should be a willingness by these political actors to eschew vote buying, because I don't understand who are offering the money at the first place. Who offers the money? Is it not the actors, the political parties, the candidates that offers the money, that the same people that get to power, and that the same people that will still get to House of Assembly, National Assembly, to make laws for us?
Okay.
They offer the money and you receive the money. So bribery and corruption has taken place. Okay.
Prof, your last word. Let's take that as your last word now.
My last word is that I believe we continue to grow and mature in issue of democracy. We have to plead with our leaders to have a conscience, and the followers to also identify when they are not doing the correct thing. And by doing that, we'll be able to have a society that will be better and have a situation where we now know the harm we do to ourselves, rather than think that we are trying to promote the society.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, discussions on this topic will certainly continue. We'll look at the long and short terms of addressing these challenges. But for now, we'll end on the topic, the dangers of vote buying. But as we talk about vote buying, some people call it gifts, some people call it something you do out of goodwill. Our next discussion segment will be acts of giving. Maybe we'll also ask at that point whether this is part of giving. Stay with us.